Avos Dala Jud. Reb Shimon ben Elazar says, "Do not appease your friend at the time of his anger. Do not comfort him at the time that his dead lies before him, and do not question him at the time of his vow, and do not attempt to see him at the time of his degradation." Shimon HaKatan says, when your foe falls, be not glad, and when he stumbles, let your heart not be joyous. Let Hashem see, and it be displeasing in his eyes, and he return his anger from him. Elisha ben Avuya says, one who studies as a child, to what is he compared? To ink written on a new paper. And to one who studies as an elder, to what is he compared? To ink written on a race paper. Rabbi Yossi ben Yehuda, leader of Kafar Ababli, says, one who learns from children, to what is he compared? To one who eats acrid grapes, and drinks wine from the press. And one who learns from his elders, to what is he compared? To one who eats ripe grapes and drinks aged wine. Rebbe says, do not look at the vessel, rather look at what it contains, where there can be a new vessel containing old wine and an old vessel containing which lacks even new wine.
Okay.
Okay.
Rabbi Eliezer HaKapar. I was looking for an explanation of what does HaKapar actually mean, and Kahati was short on this one over here. He's also sometimes known as Berebi, which is an expression of respect for him,
He says here, Rabbi Elazar ben Akapar says, jealousy, lust, and honor.
I was just going for a background into the person himself. In all these things in Avos, Kahati's been giving a little brief background into the character, so I thought I would add that in. But he was, at any rate, he was one of the people who was in Lod with Rabbi Pinchas ben Yair. Anyway, Rabbi Eliezer HaKapar says, Hakina, Taiva, Kavod, jealousy, lust, and desire for honor remove a person from this world. These are now here again is your three, which if you take Morel's principle and you say anytime you see the same number in two different places, there is a parallel. So let's just go back to the beginning of there are three things that the world stands on. So here I say Motzines Adam min ha'olam. So let's see what are the things that the world stands on: Torah, Avoda, and Maasim Tovim. Okay, so what are the things? How do these correlate? Torah, Avoda, Maasim Tovim. So kina, I would say, I'm making this up as I go along over here, just because it makes sense. So kina is jealousy is probably against Maasim Tovim, because you look at somebody else and you begrudge what they have, and you don't. That's as opposed to Maasim Tovim, which is like, I want to do more for you. Okay.
Right.
Taiva and kavod. So kavod is a spiritual thing. So if you're looking at your own kavod, then for Torah you have to be humble. You have to have a humility to deal with Torah, because you'll be able to listen to other people and take their views. So I think kavod is probably keneged Torah, which leaves that taiva is keneged avoda, where how would you work that out? That taiva is desire for earthly things, and avoda is being able to move past earthly things into the spiritual realm. I'm making this up as I go along, so maybe I'm wrong, but I'm just doing that as a little exercise.
Oh, it seems right.
Hmm?
It seems right. That seems it's regarding the person of honor. The Gemara tells us that Yosef died in 10 years earlier than his brothers because he assumed heirs of authority. So one who seeks honor will be continually plagued by perceived insults and slights to his ego, and since verbalizing his discontent is so humiliating, he will suffer silently. So, and that leads to premature death, because the anxiety that it causes has physical applications.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, Hu HaYomer. So he carries on to say, Hayilodim Lamus. Everyone who is born is destined to die. Mesim Lachayos, and people who die will be resurrected. V'chayim Ladon, and all life will come for judgment. Leida, in order to know, Lohodia, to inform, Lehivada, so that it should be known all around the world. Jehu El, that Hashem is the God. Hu HaYotzer, he is the creator. Hu HaBorei, the form of the creator. Hu HaMavin, he's the one who understands. Hu HaDayan, he's the judge. And Hu HaEid, and he is the witness. Hu Baldin, he is the complainant. Hu Asid Ladun, and he will give the judgment. Baruch Hu, blessed is he. But don't worry that it's all in one hands, because he is. There's no perversion of justice in before him. Lo shicha, he does not forget anything. Lo masopanim, he shows no favoritism. Lo mikach shochad, and he takes no bribes. Shakol shelo, everything belongs to him. B'da, and you should know. Shakol lefi cheshbon, and everything is according to a very clear calculation. And don't let your Yetzer say, okay, never mind, I'll do what I do, and then when I die, I'll escape from the punishment, because that's not you're missing the point altogether. If you should think such a thing, that's once I die, it's all over. Because you didn't ask to be brought into this world, as many children say. You were born against your will. Al korcha, you live against your will. Al korcha, and you will die against your will. Al korcha, and in the same way as all these things are obviously true, you will also be hauled in front of the court against your will. So this is all. So the whole theme of this Mishnah is look at what's going to happen in the next world. You have no choice. And your neshama is going to come in front of Hashem after you die. Okay. Perek Hay. So from Perek Hay onwards, now we in Perek Hay at least, I think Perek returns to the thing of quoting people, but Perek Hay just they're anonymous. The Mishnayos are not stated anyone's name, and we start going through a whole bunch of numbers, and everything is tied together by the numbers that you see in the Mishnah. So it starts off with Asarim Amaris Nivra Ha'olam. There were 10 statements in Bereshis. The first one being Bereshis itself, and then Vayomers. Right? There are 9 Vayomers and 1 Bereshis. And what is this to teach us? Like Halom b'mamar echad yacholi baros. Couldn't Hashem have just said, "Let everything be," and it was? Because there was a lot of thought and calculation and construction that went into the world, to exact punishment from the evildoers, who destroy the world. Somehow this escalates the significance of how important this world is, and to give the reward to the tzaddikim, so that the tzaddikim also receive their due reward for honoring Hashem and this world that was made with 10 statements, not just one. Now it doesn't entirely answer the question. Okay, so why 10 im kvar? So make it 1,000. Make it 1,000 statements, and then it would have been worth even more. But I think I haven't done Maharal on this Mishnah, but as far as I recall, the Maharal says that 10 is the number of completion, where we'll see these parallels with the 10, obviously the 10 plagues, the 10 commandments, and so that's it's a certain completeness of creation that he will bring out in that. Okay, let's go back to Chazara. Gimel Tesvav.
Everything is known, permission is granted, and the world is judged with goodness, yet everything is in accordance with the abundance of deeds. He used to say everything is given with a guarantor, and a net is spread over all the living. The shop is open, the merchant extends credit, the ledger is open, and the hand writes. Whoever wishes to borrow may come and borrow, and the collectors make their rounds constantly. every day and collect payments from the peer person, whether he realizes it or not. They have what to rely on. The judgment is a truthful judgment, and everyone is ready for the banquet. Elazar ben Azariah says, if there is no Torah, there is no proper conduct. If there is no proper conduct, there is no Torah. If there is no wisdom, there is no fear of God. If there is no fear of God, there is no wisdom. If there is no understanding, there is no knowledge. And if there is no knowledge, there is no understanding. And there is no flour, there's no Torah. If there was no Torah, there is no flour. He used to say, anyone whose wisdom exceeds his actions, to what is he likened? To a tree whose branches are numerous, but whose roots are few. And the wind comes and uproots it and turns it upside down. And it is stated, he will be like a lone tree in the desert and will not see when goodness comes. He dwells in parched lands, in the wilderness, in a salty, uninhabited land. That's right here. I'm sorry. But one who exceeds his wisdom, to what is he likened? To a tree whose branches are few, but whose roots are numerous. Even if all the winds in the world were to come and blow against it, they could not budge it from its place. As it is stated, he will be like a tree planted near water, which spreads its roots along a brook and does not see when the heat comes, whose foliages are refreshed. It will not worry in a year of drought, and will not stop producing fruit.
Okay.
When we finish this
Yeah.
Sunday, what are we going to do then? They're
What
saying
is
Avos.
Avos? Yeah, we're still in Avos. Yeah. If you've got 2 volumes of Avos, then you're into the next volume.
Right. Okay. Just wanted to make sure.
Yeah.
Sometimes you pull tricks on me and go back to something. Okay.
Avodah Aleph Tet.
Okay. Aleph Tet. Even in a place in which they said it is permitted to rent, they did not say for a place of dwelling, because he brings idols into it. As is written, do not bring an abomination into your abomination into your house. In any place, they should not rent him a bathhouse, because it is called by his name. One may not stable an animal and intends of idolaters, because they are respected in regard to bestiality. Nor may a woman be alone with them, because they are suspect in regard to immorality. Nor may a person be alone with them, because they are suspect in regard to murder. A Jewish should not assist in idleness in childbirth, because she causes the child to be born to idolatry. But an idolatrous woman may assist a Jewish in childbirth. A Jewish should not nurse the child of an idolatrous woman, but an idolatrous woman may nurse the child of a Jewish in her domain. One may seek medical treatment that is healing from beneath them, from his possessions, literally for healing possessions, but not for personal healing. One may not take haircuts from them in any place. These are the words of Reb Meir. But if we come and say it in a public place, it is permitted, but not in private. That is between him and him.
Okay. Babasha.
Here we go. Well, one who says, this is my son, is believed. If he said, this is my brother, he is not believed, because he must share his portion with him. If he died, the possessions must be returned to their place. If possessions fell to him from another source, his brothers inherit with him. If one died and a will was found tied to his thigh, it is void. If he granted title to someone else with it, whether he from the heirs or not, his words are upheld. One who signs over his property to his sons must write from today and after death. These are the words of Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yossi says he need not. If one signs over his possessions to his son, if one signs over his possession to his son to take effect after his death, the father cannot sell them, because they are signed over to his sons, and when the son cannot sell them, because they are signed in the possession of the father. If the father went out and sold them, they are sold until his death. If the son went out and sold them, the buyer has to share in them until the father dies. The father can detach produce and give it to whoever he wishes, and where produce he leaves, the over detached from the field belongs to the heirs. If he leaves older and younger sons, the older ones are not supported at the expense of the youngest ones, and now the younger ones fed at the expense of the older ones. Rather, they divide equally. The older ones marry, the younger ones may marry, and if younger ones said, we will marry just as you married, we do not listen to them, because rather whatever their father gave them, he gave. If he leaves older and younger daughters, the older ones are not supported at the expense of the younger ones, nor the younger ones are supported fed at the expense of the older ones. Rather, they divide equally. If the older ones got married, the younger men may marry. If the younger ones said, We will marry just as you married. We will not listen to them. This is the stringency of daughters over sons. That the daughters are fed at the expense of the sons, but they are not fed at the expense of the daughters.
Okay.
Yeah.
Avos.
Avos is Ted Bob base. Basil said, we have not heard this tradition except in the case where she came from the harvest and from the same country as in the incident which occurred. Beis Shammai said to them, it is the same whether she came from harvesting grapes or picking olives or packing grapes or from one country to another. The sages mentioned the harvest only in recounting the actual incident, but Hillel recounted and began to rule like Beis Shammai. Beis Shammai said she may marry and she may receive a ketubah, but Beis Hillel says she may marry and she does not receive a ketubah. Beis Shammai says she does. She said to them, "You permitted the grave error offense, but you would not permit the less grave money offense." Beis Hillel replied, "We find that the brothers do not inherit the estate on their testimony." And Beis Shammai applies, "We can learn this from the ketubah document in which he writes to her, if you marry another, you shall receive what is written to you." Beis Hillel recanted and began to rule like Beis Shammai. Everyone is believed to testify for her, except for her mother-in-law's daughter, and her co-wife, and her sister-in-law, and her husband's daughter. Why is there differences between testimony concerning a bill of divorce and concerning death? Because the document is proof. If one witness said he died and she replied, if one witness said he died and she remarried, and then another came and said she did not die, she need not be discharged. If one witness said he died and two witnesses said he did not die, even if the married one was discharged, the two witnesses said he did die, and one witness said he did not die, even if it had remained, so she may do so.
Okay, that's
If
it.
Yeah.
That's that. You just there was, I just lost track over there. You finished off the day, yeah?
I finished I finished Dalit. Yes.
Yeah. Okay, good.
So I'm slipping today here.
Okay.
Trumas. Okay. Trumas. Aleph test.
Yep.
Okay. If one may separate truma from oil for olives which are due to be preserved, and from wine for grapes which are due to be made into raisins. Then one separated truma from oil for olives intended for eating, from olives for olives intended for eating, from wine for grapes intended for eating, or from grapes for grapes intended for eating, and then he decided to shred them, and he need not separate truma. One may not separate truma from the product, which is in a finished state, from produce, which is in unfinished state, from produce in an unfinished state, from produce from a finished state, or from produce in an unfinished state, from produce in an unfinished state. But if he did separate truma, truma is truma. One may not separate truma from clean to unclean, but if he did separate, his truma is truma. In truth, they said, if part of a cake of pressed figs became unclean, he separated truma from its clean part for its unclean part. So too, a double of vegetables for a heap. There were 2 cakes, 2 bundles, and 2 heaps. One clean and one unclean and one clean, and he may not separate from one to the other. If Eliezer says one may separate truma from the clean for the unclean.
That's it. And Avos.
There are 248 limbs in a person, 30 in the foot, 6 per toe, 10 in the ankle, 2 in the leg, 5 in the knee, 1 in the thigh, 3 in the hip, 11 ribs, 30 in the hand, 6 per finger, 2 in the forearm, 2 in the elbow, 1 in the upper arm, and 4 in the shoulder, for a subtotal of 101 on one side and 101 on the other side, plus 18 vertebrae in the spine, 9 in the head, 8 in the neck, 6 in the chest, 5 in the genitals. Each of these limbs convey truma via touching, carrying, or ohel. When it is so, when it contains sufficient flesh to heal, but if the limb does not contain sufficient flesh to heal, it contains truma via touching and carrying, but not via ohel. Do these convey truma through an ohel? A corpse, an olive volume of a corpse, an olive volume of netzel, a ladle full of corpse powder, the spine and a skull, a limb severed from a corpse, and a limb severed from a living body, having sufficient flesh to heal a quarter cob of bones. Even if it is less than most of the frame, or less than the numeral majority, most of the skeletal frame, or the numeral majority of the corpse, of the bones of the corpse, even if it comprises less than a quarter kav of bones. All of these could be tumor. How many bones are a numerical majority of the bones in the skeleton? 125. A quarter log of blood and a quarter log of dead blood convey tumor if they are from one corpse, or says even from two corpses. If all the blood of an embryo emanated, the Akiva says even a tiny amount conveys tumor, whereas in the sages say only if there is a small quarter. An olive log of worms, whether alive or dead, whether Eliezer contains the tummy like the flesh of a corpse, but the sages declare it tahor. The flesh of cremated corpses, what Eliezer says its minimum measures to convey tumor is a quarter cup of ash, but the sages declare it tahor. A little more than a ladle full of gray powder is tameh, and Rabbi Shimon calls it tahor. And a ladle full of corpse powder that was kneaded with water is not considered protected in respect for tumor.
Okay. That's it.
Really
A good Chodesh, a good Shabbos. See you on
Sunday morning. Oh, no, I have a dentist appointment by 10:30 or something. So, okay.
Okay.
Great. Thank you. Be well. Bye.
Bye.